So my name's Seth Heddle, and we're here to host the Information Technology and Cybersecurity Career Night. And this is our first time doing this remotely, so we appreciate you guys all joining us, and we'll do our best to make it run as smoothly as possible. So like I said, my name is Seth Heddle. I'm the division head for Career and Technical Education at Prospect High School. And I have a great group of panelists with me that have a lot of different experiences and a lot of knowledge on these areas that can help us out. The first one being Nick Maza.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm Nick Maza. I'm the infrastructure supervisor for School District 214. We take care, our team takes care of anything from the cybersecurity piece to networking, wireless, identity, service engine, and virtualization for the district.
Thank you, Nick. Nick has been a very big part of us with all this remote learning and helping us out tremendously. Next is SD Williams.
Hi, everyone. I am SD. I am from Danico Enterprises. I'm the owner and the president. Danico is a web and marketing firm located in downtown Arlington Heights, and we have hosted District 214 students for the last few years and have had a great time doing so.
Thank you, SD, and thank you for helping our students grow beyond the classroom. Next, we got Mike Drenth.
Thanks, Seth. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Drenth. I'm a teacher at Rolling Meadows High School. I've been in District 214 for 18 years now. I've been teaching in the IT field for about 22 years. I teach on the hardware side of things, so on the IT hardware side of things, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it in a little bit. So nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we got Tom Morose.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Rose, business and computer science teacher up at Buffalo Grove High School. I've been at Buffalo Grove High School now since 2000, teaching business and computer science. I got about 24 years of experience teaching. Many of the courses I teach are computer programming, computer science, and college accounting, college business. And I'll be here tonight to kind of talk to you about our cybersecurity / computer science pathway.
Thank you, Tom. And then last we got Robert Voss.
Hey everyone, I'm Robert Voss. I'm a recent graduate of Rolling Meadows. I was in the 2020 graduating class. I currently go to Harper, and I actually work for the district as the current cybersecurity supervisor. And I'll be sharing my experience as a previous apprentice going through the district and my experience within the classes.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks for joining us. So kind of how we're going to go from here. We're going to walk you through the two different pathways, and by we, I mean the instructors, because they know them far better than myself. And they're going to walk you through and kind of give you some highlights of that. We would appreciate as much as possible, add to the chat any questions you have. And ideally, we would be doing this in a gym with a big projector and people raising their hand. And we understand this is not quite as user-friendly, but at the same time, you can add your questions there and we will answer them as quickly and as thorough as possible. So our first pathway we're really going to walk through is the information technology and network systems. And I'm going to kind of let the instructors go ahead and take over from here.
All right. So as I said before, I teach the IT side of things with the hardware. Myself, I'm at Rolling Meadows High School, and we have a district program. So I host students from Elk Grove and sometimes from Prospect. Then my counterpart, Tom Polak, who teaches over at Hersey and Wheeling, and he also hosts students from Buffalo Grove. The pathway that we have, typically the student starts with a course called IT Fundamentals, which basically gives them a general idea of kind of everything. So we cover hardware, software, networking, database management. We do a little bit of just a little bit of programming, talk a lot about like the Internet of Things. And that is tied into something called the CompTIA IT Fundamentals exam, which the students can sit for at the end of that course, which is a semester long. And typically after IT Fundamentals, then they take a course called A+ Operating Systems, which then we really kind of focus on a lot of the operating systems, Windows, Linux. We talk a little bit about Macs, but mainly Windows and Linux, and then we talk some server. And then the students can also sit for a certification exam there, which is the A+ Operating Systems, or there's like 2 exams that make up the A+. And then the second year, a student will usually take the second part of the A+, which is the A+ hardware. We really do a deep dive into a lot of the hardware that make up PCs and mobile devices. And there's a little bit of network that's tied into there. And then second semester, they take the college computer networking, which follows a Cisco curriculum. So the students get to work in a Cisco curriculum, and they work with packet tracer, learning how to kind of troubleshoot routers and servers, work with VLANs and things of that nature. And then our third year, we typically have a advanced networking in network systems and cybersecurity. So it's a pretty heavy cybersecurity curriculum. The students use a number of different programs. They use something called Test Out, which they do a security and ethical hacking. And that is tied into also the CompTIA Security Plus exam. So a couple of the highlights is each one of the courses in our pathway is tied into an industry certification. So the students have a chance to pass, take and pass and gain an industry certification. And the other nice thing about the pathway is that they're all dual credit courses. So the students can not only get credit at the high school, but they get college credit from taking those courses as well.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to kind of go into Robert here. Robert, obviously, as he introduced himself, said he was a recent grad, and I'm just going to ask Robert to kind of walk through his experience and how that really led him into where he's going now.
All right, thank you. So I went to Meadows. I took all these classes under Mr. Drenth. The course changed a little bit since IT Fundamentals was added, but all of these build upon each other, and they really expose you to everything in a networking side in IT. And so I think the best part about all these courses is that the freeness that they can allow you using packet tracer. I think it's a must-have program if you want to experiment and it really to get your feet wet and learn about networking and switches. And so basically I took cybersecurity my junior year, went into the apprenticeship my senior year, and I took classes at Moraine Valley with the IT partnership that is offered. If you look at it on the right side, it expands and lets you actually take more classes that aren't available at your high schools. So I would greatly advise that you go in and apply for this apprenticeship if you are a current junior, and interested in cybersecurity. You get to actually go to Moraine Valley and take a CCNA course to get a professional certificate, which is it's an entry level where all of these are certificates. They're offered with CompTIA. The CCNA is a official certificate offered with Cisco. It'll give you a lot more experience and influence and help you learn more about networking. And it does look really good on a resume if you're applying for a job.
Thank you, Robert. And Nick was actually the host of Robert for the cybersecurity. So I'm going to go ahead and let Nick speak a little about the apprenticeship that our district offers within the district, actually. So.
Yes, thank you. When Kathy brought this project to me, I was really thrilled to, and scared at the same time because I was pretty busy and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna deal with? And then once that they joined me, and I noticed how they were able to actually help me with any of the tasks that we do in the network operations team. I was thrilled, and the idea of giving them the opportunity, giving Robert the opportunity to now to only apply that that theoretical knowledge to a practice, and made mistakes in packet tracer, made mistakes in packet tracer, not in live network, and then understand how that works. And then for him to be able to put it in a resume and say, I had this experience in high school and this pathway program, also have these experience from all of these what I learned from the program, and put that in the resume in addition to the certification that he gained. He's step ahead of the game for sure to get a really nice opportunity for his career.
Thank you, Nick.
Mhm.
Next, we're going to go to SD Williams here. And since you've hosted several of our students, and I know this is going to be, they're going to vary a little bit, but what would a typical day be for a student that is going to work with one of our great community partners?
Oh, wow. It varies from day to day, but typically we come in and we review the project. We have an agile methodology that we follow. So we have what they call a stand-up meeting, which is a quick 15-minute meeting to kind of go over what the plan is for the day. Most of the time, the students are only there for a couple hours, so we need to be very focused on what our deliverables are going to be. After that point, we cover any learning points, like if their assignment is to build a couple of pages on a website. Do they need help with any of the code that's behind it? Do they need help with the design or anything like that? We go through it. Then they get to work. And typically they are done with it well before the end of the day, and we start talking about that next day. Most of the students that I've had have had some background either through your programs or through just tinkering at home with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, MySQL, or MariaDB, or any of those kind of things. And we kind of put those to use with our content management systems that we use. My company uses open source content management systems primarily, but we do also work with proprietary systems. And so we try to take what they already know, take what the client's looking for, and create the solution that they hired us to do. It's never busy work unless it's a learning opportunity. Mostly it's client-facing work.
Awesome. Thank you. Out of respect for time, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next pathway. And then we will kind of keep pulling everyone in and then answering these questions that are coming in the chat as quickly as possible. So we're going to go ahead and move on to cybersecurity. Mr. Morose is going to go ahead and kind of walk you guys through this and kind of give you the ins and outs of this pathway.
Thank you, Seth. Yeah, one of the nice things about this district is we have two pathways here in this area. One is kind of leaning towards the hardware networking side in terms of setting those features up to maintain, and the cybersecurity behind that. And then we have another stream of courses here dealing primarily with the traditional, I don't want to say traditional, but computer science. And so the pathway that you see here kind of exploits that with a variety of languages that they're going to be exposed to as they go through these courses. And they don't have to take the courses in any real particular order, but typically the courses there for freshmen and sophomores, the mobile makers and AP computer science principles are not as challenging as the courses you'll see there their junior and senior year. But to kind of go through the pathway there, you'll see that for freshmen, we have there's a course called Mobile Makers. It is a course where they learn the language Swift through Apple, through a curriculum that we have through Mobile Makers, and they'll be developing apps and programs for their phone and the iPad. And they can continue on and they can take mobile app 2 development as a sophomore and continue to make more robust apps as they learn more and more of the content and the coding behind that and the graphic user interface components of that as well. where they can take AP Computer Science Principles, which is a College Board exam. And that focuses primarily on the kind of like the big idea and the theories behind computation. And those languages that are usually explored in that are Python and JavaScript. As you get farther into upperclassmen, your junior and senior years, we have AP Computer Science A, which is another College Board course that you can take an exam for. And that course primarily dives into the algorithmic computation of computer science using the language Java. And so they'll go through that and get into some very minute data structures and so forth in that course. And then we also have our college cybersecurity and mobility course, which is a dual credit course through Moraine Valley. That course here on this side, we spent a lot of time more on the cybersecurity aspect of hacking, enumeration, looking for vulnerabilities, playing the role of both the red hat and the blue hat, so to speak, which is the offense and defense. And they get some exposure to the language of C. They get exposure to Linux there as well. And we have some online simulations that they will use that create environments for them to use and work in that are safe for them to explore these tools and understand better how they work with and are used. And then they get credit through Moraine Valley for 2 courses. I think it's 101 and 103. But the idea behind the pathway here is just to kind of give the students as much exposure to a variety of languages to keep them diverse and to see the relationship between them and to kind of have that adaptability as they leave the high school to be able to pick up a language as they move forward. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I apologize for popping out of there. I was trying to look up, make sure I got email addresses correct for the chat here. So one question specific, and I know you touched on them there, Tom, is the different programming languages written. They were Python, Java, and Swift, correct?
Yeah, JavaScript and C.
Okay, and C. Awesome. One other question that has come up again is on the pathway up there where it has a DC next to the name, that means dual credit. And those are the different dual credit courses that we have with our secondary partners. And this could really be for anyone. I'm going to kind of bend it towards our instructors. What are some of the different careers and opportunities that these 2 different pathways will present for our students and introduce them to?
Mike, you want to go first?
Sure. So even though these pathways, when I talk about kind of the courses I teach, which are more hands-on with like networking and not as programming heavy, they can still lead to similar careers when you're looking at cybersecurity, because both of them are kind of leading into that area. As Nick and Robert kind of talked a little bit, ours lean more towards, the networking side, working with servers and doing those things. But I mean, there's a bevy of positions available in these areas. And one of the key things is I found some information a couple of years ago that in this field, in the IT field, especially cybersecurity, there are so many openings, and more than half of the people that are working in that field have very little formal education in the field. They're kind of self-taught. And so these programs that we offer in the district are really important, because not only are they gaining the education formally through the courses, but they're also getting the experience with the apprenticeship program. A lot of the different things that Tom is doing with his courses and that we're doing with our courses. And I'll have kind of maybe Robert talk a little bit about the extracurricular opportunities that we have in the programs as well.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of Mike there, when we sat down doing a lot of designing of this curriculum, kind of looking at the head is, the approach is always kind of like what positions in terms of job titles or a college degree. And as we've been finding over the last 5 years, it's being able to have that adaptability and having that almost like a group of certifications. Computer science is still a very huge degree and major. You have all sorts of subsets. Cybersecurity is a huge realm. And there's so much and so many subsets where students are going to find a very interesting interest and kind of focus on that area. And it's not necessarily the college degree, but it is going to be those certifications that you get to be working on various applications, various programs and protocols. It still lends to your standard degrees such as computer science, computer software development, computer networking administration, computer engineering. Those are all there, and we go through all those, and those are great opportunities. But the idea behind these two pathways that we have here is exposure for these students to get that real solid, prior knowledge before they get into the real world and they get into these the college courses, to have a better hand and a leg up on what to expect, and kind of get more of an edge on what they're going to be getting in their education as they move on, whether it be through independent certifications or for your institution or a different program.
Thank you, Tom. And as Mr. Drentz brought up, is our extracurricular opportunities. Robert, would you like to elaborate on those in terms of how it was for a student perspective and the value those brought to you? Robert, you are muted still. Am I the only one not able to hear Robert?
Is this good?
There we go. There we go.
Oh my gosh. But okay. So I was heavy in cybersecurity, not so much in programming. But the two big extracurriculars I would say offered at District 214 schools are Cyber Patriot and NCL, the National Cyber League. So first, starting off, the Cyber Patriot is more you focus more on operating systems. So you basically go into these operating systems and fix problems. And so like there's different kind of like tiers as you advance through the competition. They get harder and more specific. So as you first start in the first sort of tier, you focus on common problems that might occur to anyone. And like if like a common problem, if you went to work for someone in business, you might have to go and manage privileges on computers, and that'll help you. There's four distinct things within Cyber Patriot. You have 3 operating systems, so you get to work with Windows 10, Windows 8, and Linux. So most computers out there might not be running the latest version of Windows, so you get to experience Windows 8 and Windows 10 along with Linux. And then the fourth part is a networking piece offered by Cisco, where you go into Packet Tracer, and they basically set up a network for you that you have to sort of fix. They give you an outline basically of what's wrong, but they don't tell you how to fix it so much. So you can apply what you learn in your classes to that. And the second one is NCL, which is you don't have to be a part of the school district to actually do it. You can go sign up for yourself and take part. There's a fall and a summer, I believe, which will expose you to a very wide range as opposed to Cyber Patriot, focusing on operating systems and networking only. But NCL focuses more on like a cybersecurity and ethical hacking, whereas you get to look at like like wireless packets, network packets, but you also go into coding. There's like a sort of malware that they give you that you have to reverse engineer and figure out. They give you like set values that they want you to find out, and you can solve those for yourself. And I believe both of these programs would give you a sort of experience that you could use if you were to go into the field and get or start a career in the field, which both of these give you a lot of experience. Yes.
Thank you, Robert. And I've been one to be secondhand on watching the students do these competitions, and what they're doing is, I have no clue what they're doing, but it looks really cool and looks very difficult. So, SD, one thing, and Robert kind of led us into it, which was a nice segue there, is what are some attributes or skills that you're really looking for, or that would help be successful in your field of information technology?
So as I mentioned, I work primarily in open source content management systems. So that means knowing your HTML, knowing CSS, knowing JavaScript, and the various, I don't know what you want to call it, variations of JavaScript like AngularJS, Node.js, React.js, you know, all those different ones. Knowing your databases, because content management systems are powered by databases. So if you don't know how that data is being stored, if you run into an issue and you can't render a page, how are you going to fix it? Knowing PHP is a big one, which is a server-side programming language, because it is also how your sites are powered. That PHP driver that calls that information from that database and then renders it on your page. A lot of people don't realize that when they are using content management systems like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Wix, Weebly, all of those guys, they all have a similar setup. They have a rendering tool, which is either HTML, PHP, or some variation. They all require CSS for your styling. They require a database of MySQL, MariaDB, or some other database. And they're usually some JavaScript that's helping with the UI or user interaction and things like that. So all of those kind of fit. And then, you know, we don't do a ton with cybersecurity, but you also need to know how to do some of the best practices to help prevent your sites from being hacked, you know, things of that nature.
Thank you. And you mentioned you don't do a ton with cybersecurity, so I'm going to kind of bounce that similar question to Nick here, and who works for our district. And what are the attributes that would be helpful in that spectrum of cybersecurity and or just in general apprenticeship?
Sure. One of the things that I look for, and I see these people progressing from high school all the way to get a job and being successful at it, is being curious, being understand that they wanted to, you wanted to learn, you wanted to non-stop learning, being having a lab at home, using packet tracer, making a ton of mistakes on these test scenarios, and that's how you learn, that's how you explore networking, and that's how you succeed in all these good certifications that are out there. Definitely, that's a plus that I look for, and I understand OSI model. OSI model is probably the base on all networking and cybersecurity. Understanding the layers on how to troubleshoot from 1 to 7 is basic and so helpful for everyone. If someone, a coworker, comes over to me and say, I think we have a layer 3 because of this, a layer 3 issue because of this, and that, we know exactly where switch or router to go to and tackle that issue down. So definitely understanding the basics and theory from the OSI model to making mistakes and apply those knowledge on test environments.
Thank you, Nick. And I took one college course in hardware, and I remember the layers. I don't remember much about them, but I remember the layers. So, and SD did comment too as well that curiosity is one of the big attributes that they look for, and that is helpful at being successful. And I think that's going to kind of be a common trend with all these different technologies, because as Tom and Mike have talked about, they didn't start as programming and computer science teachers, and they've kind of worked their way into that because everything's kind of evolved as time has gone on. So please keep adding questions if you have any as we're kind of going here. One that's coming up, and this is going to be for Tom and Mike, and whoever wants to handle it kind of first, but it's similar to when we had the first session of a junior going to be a senior, but it's going to be their first course, and they're not exactly sure if they're going to go into anything with information technology, either cyber or hardware. But where would you kind of recommend them to start off as a senior just entering the pathway?
I guess I'll take that one.
I was
Yeah.
trying to get my mute button going, but go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it really all depends on which area they want to focus on. But I know on my end, and as Mr. Morose and kind of talked about last time, one of the nice things about these courses is you don't necessarily, they're kind of independent of one another. It's in my pathway, it's really nice to kind of have that background in IT fundamentals before you're kind of tackling the A plus and the networking, but you don't necessarily need it. The other nice thing is that you can take both of them concurrently. So if you're going to be a senior next year, in my pathway, you could take both the IT fundamentals, A plus OS, and the A plus hardware and networking concurrently. And the nice thing about doing that is you can still get the dual credit for those. And if you're really interested in the cybersecurity aspect on my end, you can take that as well. You don't have to have those other courses. So there are options for juniors and seniors.
Yeah, it's exactly correct. And as your students go through their high school years, their junior and senior year, their schedules really start to open up as they've taken their graduation required courses and they kind of get out of the way. There's choices for electives. And so it's very common to be a junior and, be like, okay, I'm not sure where I want to go or where I want to start. And we have counselors at each buildings that'll help with that. But with both these pathways, they're both set up so that you can jump in at any given point in time. I currently have 2 seniors who just took a lot of AP classes, and it wasn't until their senior year they were able to take some elective courses. And they're taking, our college financial accounting and our AP computer science A course and the college mobility course all their senior year. And so that is possible. When the students realize what it is they want to kind of explore and find out. But yeah, they're meant to be accommodating in terms of it's not rigid where if you miss one, you're going to miss the entire pathway. We'd be doing a disservice. But we want to try and make sure that students get this exposure and get the exploration. And especially as they get older, your seniors and juniors are going to have more of a maturity to understand some of the concepts, let's say in computer science A, than a freshman coming in would. And that's why we have those courses set up in that fashion.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, I think it's very valuable for us to understand as well that sometimes these students are doing experiences and things outside of the classroom during the summer or at night, and they're taking online courses and they're gaining those experiences. So that's kind of where we'll have these individuals that have had, or they've come from a different school and they've had a different course because they have a different sequence. So again, we're very accommodating, and that's really where I'll point you in the direction of myself and the other division heads at each building, where then we will go to the instructors a lot of the time because we don't necessarily know the perfect answer, and we kind of got to solve that puzzle to give the students the best opportunities. So let's see here. So one question that's come up a couple times there's a lot of different areas to go with this, so anyone's welcome to kind of pop in on our panelists here, is what are some of the different types of jobs available out there? And what's our general area of salaries, which I know it can be a broad spectrum, but it's come up a couple of times now.
In terms of jobs, I mean, I know we got a couple here on the panel here that are in those industries, and there's so many industries and so many facets of job openings. It would be hard to say one or particular, but going across the board, like I had mentioned earlier, with these 2 pathways, whichever one they've gone through, if they bounce through courses and so forth, they're going to have credentials to really get a head start in a 4-year institution, a 2-year institution. And as you look to job prospects, just the umbrella of cybersecurity, it's not one particular degree. There are so many different components and openings and opportunities for students to really excel in, and the salary ranges are really all over the place. And as you build those credentials and you build that, your certification and your degrees, it makes you more and more valuable and sellable, and increases that salary just across the line. If you look at computer science, for example, just as cybersecurity, it's the same thing. You no longer leave with a computer science degree. You'll have some type of specialization in some area, whether it is software development, whether it is networking, whether it is engineering, and they have their own facets of opportunities there that set forth. And if you look at any job market, you'll see these job titles or these degrees that are sought after, are continually in the top 10. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, same thing with networking. For example, when we have issues with a specific router and we open up a support case with Cisco, they have people specifically only for the different layers on the ISI model, or they have only a department that works with routing only, or layer 2 routing, or layer 3 routing. So to go back to what Tom is saying, even though you want to understand a broad understanding of networking in general, you can still deep dive and be a specific subject within networking to work with, and you change your mind years later and you move on to cybersecurity or something else, but definitely plenty to pick from.
I agree totally. I started as a client server technologist, which I don't know if anyone even knows that term anymore. And it's now become, I'm a digital marketer for some people, I'm a web developer for other people. It kind of depends on where you are curious, where you are enjoying the work, and how you want to involve in that work.
Well, and I can even, I brought up to Nick the different levels and things of that nature. And I think it's even important as we go into this technological world. I always tell my students, which are primarily engineering students, I'm like, taking programming classes are good, even if you don't fully love it, because you understand the lingo, and understanding the lingo is then something very valuable to be able to communicate, because we're all intertwined in how we go about all that. So
I'm glad to hear it. As a former electrical engineer now doing websites, I think it's awesome.
There you go. Yeah, it's all intertwined though. So, all right. So I'm on to the last question, as long as no one else adds any to the chat. We're going to I'm going to work on my screen and work my way up, and I'm going to pose it to at least a couple of you. So we're going to start with Robert, and this is going to be probably the most difficult for him because it's not that long ago. If you had to go back to high school, let's say you're 8th grade, you're starting to sign up for classes, what would you tell yourself that you wish you would have known at this point in your, we're going to say in your academic career and your post-high school career?
I would say I personally got into this A+ because there were 2 courses basically offered my freshman year. I could either go into app development or A+, and just by chance, I guess I chose A+ over it, and then that whole thing started. So I would say what I wish I would have known was more about like some of the like extracurriculars sort of offered at Meadows. So I would have gotten more out of more of the classes that I would have taken. Like I knew like Cyber Patriot was a thing, but I didn't really join it until my sophomore year. So if I knew about that, like when I was a freshman, I would have joined when I was a freshman and applied more what I've learned in A+ and strengthened my knowledge in all those courses. But I think you should like solidify on, or maybe not solidify, but try and figure out which course you really want to go to in this area. Like, do you want to go into programming, or do you want to go into more of a hardware, like physical side with A+, Net+, and whatnot? But I'm not really sure. Like, what else?
That was a fabulous answer.
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult too because you're not that far removed.
Yeah, I guess.
Just being last year. So
I think what he was trying to say, Seth, is that he his high school experience was wonderful. With
Yes.
great advice all the way through. No hiccups. How about for you, Miss Williams? What would you tell yourself?
Not to go into engineering. I mean, I went through the electrical engineering, computer engineering path. However, that did put me on the software engineering path that I've sort of kept going on. I think I would also tell myself to not be afraid to speak up. I mean, as a female, I had 2 females in my class besides me, and so I was a little shy and didn't say as much as I probably could have. And just keep being curious. I mean, I've always been curious about different things and wanting to tinker with them, and just to encourage my high school self just to keep doing it.
Awesome. Well, I'll spare the last 3 of having to answer that question unless they really feel they need to or desire to do so. But I think, again, it's obviously I'm employed by them, but it's amazing opportunities these students can have. And if you had asked me when I went through high school, I would have probably, I took like the CAD classes and stuff, but we didn't have anything of this nature available. So it's amazing opportunities, and it's because of our panelists here of instructors that evolved their careers, and our community partners, and our even our district IT hopping on board with this. So if there's any additional questions, we're going to kind of wrap up. I appreciate everyone coming on. I appreciate all our panelists and their help. And then if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out. The division heads, all our names are listed on our different websites. But you can find all of those on D214.org. And let us know if we can do anything to help.
Thanks for having me.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And just one quick note that these recordings will be posted on the district website in the very near future. So if you missed anything or want to rewind and hear it again, those will be available. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good job.
everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.